that within the Department of Finance, there wasn't an awareness of the scale of this until the last number of months.
It's very hard to believe that. It's very hard to believe that.
It's quite astonishing.
We've had a series of bank scandals in the recent history of this state, and what we're facing is light touch regulation from the central bank, and the government allow, and by the way, the previous government, Fianna Fáil and the Greens, allowed it to happen, and this current government and the previous government with Labour are allowing it to happen. Light touch regulation dominates and is a feature of this society. We'll probably come to it later on when we talk about another issue, but I do think that there has to be criminal law applied in these cases. If you don't, then you're not serious about dealing with it.
It's quite astonishing that I presume the Minister for Finance of the day is in touch with the Governor of the Central Bank of the day. And it's quite astonishing that this has only recently emerged. Thanks a lot, by the way, in fairness to the Finance Committee. Part of the problem is, I think there were two things here. One was the priority of the government, it seems to me, was to protect the money in the banks, so that when they offload the share, they get a maximum return. The other thing is, in the Celtic Tiger era, there was an unhealthy relationship between senior politicians and bankers. We had, for instance, the then Taoiseach Brian Cowan playing golf with a senior banker. Way back in the mists of time, we had a serving Taoiseach, Charles Saughy, having huge money written off by the banks. We had a former Taoiseach, Gareth Fitzgerald, having a substantial amount of money written off in bad debts. And it's a legitimate question to ask. Had they not been the senior politicians there were, would they have been treated as benignly as the banks? You go back to some unfortunate
profitable in Europe, and they charge twice the rate on interest. The Irish banks are the most profitable in Europe. They charge twice the rate on interest rate on variable mortgages that the rest of Europe do. They charge 3.3% on a variable mortgage, and the rest of Europe charges 1.8%. Irish people are being ripped off by the banks consistently, constantly. They know it, they feel it, and they're totally frustrated at the fact that you never see a banker go to prison, but you see people go to prison for robbing food, for not paying fines. You never see a banker behind bars, and until we do, there's no government serious about this.
Regina Doherty, isn't that government?
We should watch very carefully that the compensation package doesn't include a sort of negation of criminal law being applied afterwards, because often these settlements are in full and final settlement without prejudice, and there'll be no follow-up on it. So I think whatever compensation there should be, if people need to be compensated, they should be given a new home if they lost one. But they should also be, the door should never be closed on the ability to bring charges against bankers.
Brid, you've been very forthright in saying we need to have a criminal investigation into this, but is there a danger that a criminal investigation could be used to stop the process we are now engaged in, which is the compensation and redress process? Tony?
Yeah, I think it could.